Welcome back to Let's Clone Tetris, my guy. My name will be Stephen French, and today we're going to be adding the shapes, but that's about it. So, here we go. I probably should have started off part 1 with this, but I didn't show the actual Tetris that we have. So I have my sound turned off because the speakers are terrible. But we do have a working bit of Tetris. We'll just go as quickly as we can manage. Everything works. We get doubles, we get points, all that jazz. We do have a fulfilled Tetris game. So that is what we will be building throughout this series. So on my little cheat sheet of what we're going to do, we're going to start off, this is the correct file, we're going to start off by adding our first shape block. So I'm going to do sprite shape square, load this guy in, and we're just going to grab this square. I might actually change how we upload things. I'm going to try to make the next part where we put these shapes in. I'm going to make it a little bit more intuitive because it's super tedious to do the shapes and the shadows in just the standard way. So the square, there's only one. There's no point in having a rotated image for it because, I don't know, it doesn't rotate. It's square. Doesn't matter. But hit OK on that. I'm sorry. I centered it. I want the origin to be right in the middle. And we need to come down into our... Whoa, Steven. Slow your ass down. Create the object shape. This will be one shape, or one object that we pass any of the other shapes to. But we're going to start off by giving it the square. Don't give it any events yet. We're going to hop into the controller before we do that. In our controller, we need to change a couple things. For one, with our alarm, I mentioned in part 1 that this is temporary. We're not actually moving the blocks. We're going to move the shapes. So how I did it here is, yeah, do it like this. Drop the block. That sounds better than drop the shapes, but whatever. We're going to say if instance exists, object shape, then object shape dot, we're going to call this target y is equal to cell size. Now we don't have a target y variable created yet for that. Get rid of that. But we're going to do that now. So really quick, I wanted to add that and then one more thing into the controller. So we have, all we're doing is we're giving our target y 32 because we're going to be dropping this guy down 32 pixels. Come over to our step event. Now where we've created this temporary code, we're going to erase it and have some more temporary code. We're going to say if instance does not exist, object shape, then we're going to instance, oh, can't do it like that. I screw up these words a lot. Exists, oh, no, I'm sorry. Instance create at xy object shape. Easy enough. Now we can come into our actual shape. And we're going to do a few things here. Get that young create event. Initialize shape. First off, we're going to do image speed is equal to 0. Now I know the square doesn't have any other sprites, so it doesn't matter for them, but as I said before, all of these, there's only going to be one object for shape, and we're going to pass it all of the sprites that we have, so some of them are going to have the extra sprite images for rotation. We have, I guess we'll say like movement variables. We'll have our target x is equal to 0, and our target y, this is one we just set in our controller's alarm event, is equal to 0. We're going to have move horizontal equal to 0. We'll make it a capital H. Just keep up with that. That's all we're going to need for the create event for now. Come on down, shapes, shapes, shapes. Fudge. I forgot how I did this. That's all right. We're going to come down to our step. We're going to do shape movement mechanics. Good. So we're going to do for our vertical drop. Now, if you recall, we just did a minute ago, we set the target y in the alarm. So if the target y is ever not equal to 0, this is where we're going to run this code. So if target y does not equal 0, it reads out quite legibly. Then we're going to increment that position. So we're going to do y plus equals target. Oh, get rid of that capital. Target y. And then we're going to set target y back equal to 0. So it just doesn't keep moving. We want to wait until that next tick occurs. So it's going to go, and it's just going to keep on keeping on. Then we're going to do our horizontal slide. We need to first pass permission to, I guess, the keyboard to be read from the player. So we did that last episode in our script. So script player input, if I remember all my capitals. Now that gives us access to the variables key R, key L, key D, and key up for speeding up left and right and rotating. We're not going to do the rotation today. I believe we do it move H is equal to key right minus key left, but I do want to throw that into some parenthesis. Where's my and button? Multiplied by cell size. So move horizontal is either going to be equal to one of three values. If key right is pressed, so right is pressed, that's going to be equal to 1. Left will not be pressed, so it'll be 1 minus 0 times 32, so it's going to be positive 32. On the opposite, if left is pressed, it's going to be 0 minus 1, so negative 1 times 32, so we're going to have a negative 32. If nothing's pressed, 0 times 32 is still 0. That's how we're going to handle our motion. So move horizontal is equal to that. And then I guess for right now we're going to keep it simple, and we're just going to do x plus equals to move horizontal. Oh no, I did one thing wrong, because there's another temporary bit of code that I want just for this part to kind of retain. Go down to other, we're going to do an event for outside room. So if the shape goes outside of the room, we're just going to destroy it because we're not worrying about those collisions or anything yet. So this is extremely temporary. We will be getting rid of this in today's code, but just for the testing, so you can kind of drop a block, move a block, play around with that concept a little bit. Let's go. Start the game. Block is dropped. Block is moving down. Holding down makes it go faster. Let's see what happens when it gets outside of the room. It is destroyed. Next frame, bam. So we've got a block. We can go left. If we go all the way left, it's going to destroy outside of the room. The shape's going to be falling until we collide with a border piece. Now, if you remember from last time, a border is also a parent of the individual blocks, which we will be bringing back. So if the player, or if the shape is about to either hit a block or a border, we're going to run a scan. The scan is going to take the controller object. It's going to cycle through the entire grid, and every time that it's overlapping with a piece of the shape, it's going to spawn a block at that location. That's why the controller has to be the same size as the blocks, and the shape has to be like somewhat of a multiple of the block size. Now, the square shape is made up of 4 blocks. I don't know if any of them are made of more than 4. I don't think so. The L is 4 blocks, but they're all going to be 4. Fuck, are they all 4 blocks? I probably could use that to my advantage. I think they're all 4 blocks, but it's okay. They're all in different orientations, so it works regardless. But we need to check if we're about to hit the guy. So you're going to say if place meeting at x, y plus target y object border. I think we want to figure out if it doesn't. I'll check my other code if I need to, but so we're going to check if it does not equal to that. So if we're not about to hit a border, we're going to apply a motion. Else, so meaning that we are going, oh damn it, Steven. So if we are about to hit the border, now we need to go apply whatever that shape's position is to the grid that we've made before. So else with controller, we're going to run script, what did I call this one? Add to grid. Now obviously we don't have that script yet, so we're going to copy this. I'm going to put a little semicolon over the end of it. Come down to our scripts. Wait, I have check row. Why is that in here? We haven't made that yet. We'll do that later. We'll keep it in there. I made an oopsie. But come down here, we're going to make the name for our add to grid, 1, 2, 3. When you're naming a script, don't put the parentheses there. That is just for if we pass parameters later. Now, in this grid, we're going to do exactly what I just said. We got to loop all the way through the grid, pass that controller object through it, and see if anything happens. Because, as you can see, we did with controller now running the script, this script is actually being ran into the controller object. It's no longer being run through the shape. We have delegated all of that. So, well, I lost it. Add a grid. Let's see if I can do this without references. For, oops, variable yy is equal to 0, making just temporary variable only exists inside of this loop. Yy is less than 20 because, oh shit, I do XX. It's gonna be a long day. Less than 20 because that's how tall our cell is, or our grid is. Yy plus plus. Now we need to nest inside of this loop another loop that's gonna scan left to right. So same thing, local variable xx is equal to 0. Xx is less than 10 because that is our width. Xx plus plus. There it is. And now we need to check if the controller is overlapping with the shape. So if we have a place meeting, and this is where the macros that we made the other day come in, and this is where if you're choosing your screen size or your display to look different than mine, this is the main difference in our code is going to be whenever we run this type of loop. So we need to mix a couple different things. We need to get, so we're going to do the XX coordinate. We're going to multiply that by the cell size because we're using 32, or at least I'm using 32 by 32 blocks. And then we also need to add our grid offset. If you're, there we go. So right here you can see my grid begins at this location. That is 32 pixels over, 32 pixels down. If I didn't have an offset red, it's going to count my grid from up here and it's going to end it down here. So if a piece ever enters this far right row or that bottom row, it's going to actually believe that it's outside of the grid and it'll destroy the block. We don't want that, so that is where the offset comes in. I need my offset to be 0. So for me, they are the same. So my X offset and my Y offset are allowed to be the same. Times cell size plus grid offset. If you have any questions about that, it's a little bit convoluted. Just ask any questions you can. Just try to be as specific about your questions as you can. And I did another oopsie. We're going to come in here and call it object border. So if we're touching a border, also if we're touching a block, it'll read true for either one. Then we need to create a one of our individual block units. So we'll do instance create at the x, y, because at the same exact position. This is kind of like using magic numbers. We could create variables for those. I didn't, probably should have. Oh well, it happens. Cell size plus grid offset, yy times cell size, just give me that, there we go, plus grid, just give me the, really? Doesn't give me the opportunity to just type that in only a little bit. We're going to give in an object blocks. So that is what we are going to do. After this is done, oops. Now this code is run only when a collision actually occurs. So after it's done, once that shape is on the bottom, we're going to call this. We no longer need that shape, so we're actually going to call it for it to destroy. Shape, object shape. I got to do a with, I'm sorry. With object shape instance destroy. So we're going to kill off the shape. Here we're going to loop. I should have done this in real time. I'm sorry. Loop through the grid, checking if controller overlaps with shape sprite. And then we're going to create a block wherever there is an overlap. Neat. I did forget something else that I don't know if it'll be relevant to this episode. I don't think we're going to get far enough, but we're going to add it in just in case. Come back out of this. So what we need to do is if we are actually hitting a shape, we need to upgrade that grid position. We haven't actually used a grid yet. We've implemented it and we've kind of iterated through its numbers. We haven't tied any of those numbers back to the grid. So the grid is just still full of zeros. When we created it, it creates an empty grid to begin with. We're going to use that to actually check for our rows. So we're going to start updating the cells of that grid here. So how we access that is grid, and it works kind of like an array. But we have, I believe it's an accessor, or I don't remember the terminology for it. But if you use a pound sign or a hashtag, that allows us to both read or write to whatever cell we're looking at. So grid pound xxyy is equal to 1. Now this is being run inside of the place meeting. So if we have, I don't have like a checkerboard. We have the grid, we're taking the controller, we're passing it through all the lines. If it ever overlaps with the shape, we're going to change that cell to a 1, and we're going to create a block at that position. We set the grid value, which I will comment that. Update grid. Why didn't you tab by default? Oh, that's caps lock. So we update the grid, we create a block, and then we destroy the shape at the end. What that should look like, well, it's actually not going to look like too much. It'll look just like the shape stays still. And I'll explain why, and we can have some fun with that. But you come down, it goes to the bottom, block stays still, and then we move around. Now there's actually some difference in the shading of, like here the shading is on the top and the shading is on the bottom. I guess that proves that this switch is happening. But if we have a little more fun with it, come down into our block, and we're just going to create an event that isn't going to be here, or isn't going to stay. Yeah, we'll do image speed is equal to 0, and then we'll do image index is equal to choose. We'll do random image number. I should put that there and not over here. So all we're going to do is just pick a random color, because our block is made out of these 7 different colors. So we're going to pick a number from 0 to however many numbers of sprites we have, just so it's not just all blue blocks and just doesn't look like the square. What we will do eventually is whatever shape we have, that'll be a different color. When it lands, we will choose the correct color of that sprite. But for now, this works. And we can collide on top of things. That is actually going to be all that we're going to do for this part. I apologize that this tutorial is not very well organized. I had a pretty odd time with creating it, and again, it didn't come out the way that I want, but it is manageable. It does complete, and it is, like, we will have that product that I showed you at the beginning of this video. It'll be a little bit shoddy, but I think that's just a fun way to learn this. The challenge should be accepted. I will try to upload my project file, so you can just, if you for some reason break yours entirely and you need to pick it up, I'm going to include in the description just a link to what my tutorial project actually looks like. But yeah, I'm actually going to start working on part 3 right after I upload this, so we should have that out today as well. Thank you for following along. Peace.